Welcome to Compound Insights, a podcast by CFA Society New York. I'm your host, Rob Rowan. Today we're going to deviate from our usual sort of hardcore investment speak to talk a little bit about the career path of someone who has been exceptionally helpful to CFA Society New York over the years, and also a very important volunteer to the board of CFA Society New York. So Caroline Busby, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So Caroline is currently a director at BlackRock, and we're going to talk a little bit about how she got on this path for her career. And I hope that this will be motivational for some of the people who are maybe earlier on in their career, or for some of you who've been around for a little while, sort of motivational to stay engaged. So Caroline, thank you for being here. So let's go back to the beginning a little bit. So you majored in something relative to financial services in college, but how'd you get there?
Sure. So I think it actually started with math. Growing up, that was a favorite subject, and I would like to believe I was pretty good at it. And when it came time to think about college and even further beyond with the career, I thought about what would be a good practical application of my math and analytical skills. And I think just combined with the appeal of living in New York, finance felt like a good place to start. And I mean, it's been 12 years in the industry since college, so I think it's worked out pretty well so far.
Okay. So was anybody integral to you during that stage, a relative, friend of a family, anyone who worked in financial services that you thought, oh, I could do that?
I think I was pretty well surrounded, having grown up nearby the city, seeing people who commuted in, were part of that financial ecosystem. Even my dad at the time was working at CNBC. So him transitioning to more the finance world, having the business weeks and the Wall Street Journal in the house, I think also definitely piqued my interest in high school.
What was your first job search like? Let's take you back to your senior year in college and all the good and bad that is.
Well, I have to say I was pretty lucky because one, my university had a lot of on-campus recruiting with a lot of the big banks at the time. And, I think there's a lot to be said about the insight that I have now and how big finance really is. It's not just working on the sell side, working at a bank. That's obviously a great route for people to take. And I was also looking to get into equity research, but by a fluke, a family friend said their department was hiring interns for the first time. I applied on a whim, and that's how I ended up starting an internship and starting my career at AllianceBernstein in their fixed income department.
Okay, but that was sort of a benefit of your network.
Exactly.
Right. It wasn't so
it's
much
all about the network.
Super conscious in a way. I mean, you got the sort of equity research, but which feels at this stage kind of distant, but back in the day, it probably felt close enough, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So so then I guess, is that the time when you became aware of the CFA charter and started on that path?
Absolutely. So I think the benefit for me was that my firm, AllianceBernstein, then had a lot of charter holders who were represented in the investment businesses and beyond. So with the incoming associate class, it was somewhat expected that we would all at least take level one. But me being me, I was very interested in just the appeal of the credential and having that extra boost to my resume and what I could bring to the table as a finance professional. So we started together as maybe a group of 25, 30 people taking the exam, which was tremendously helpful to have that support going through all three exam levels. And I'm so grateful that I did it as soon as I did within the first year of starting work. That just happened to work out for me. But yeah, I'm glad that it was encouraged to be part of my early career journey.
Okay, so what did you mean by you being you? Let's drill into that a little bit. Because all that other stuff is important, like having a network of people who are also taking level one is great. And you're probably still in touch with some of those people now, right? Because it's one of those experiences that brings you all together, right?
Absolutely,
But you being you, can we talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. So I would say I'm a little type A, a little competitive, which I think fits very nicely within the field of finance. So it's really about what can I do to differentiate myself, or at least make sure that I'm competing at the level of my peers and have the same credentials that they may take on. I think it's wonderful as you go along in your career, you start to specialize, you realize where your strengths are. But I'm so grateful to have that base of the CFA charter, and certainly we'll talk more about all the other benefits that accrues. But No, I thought it was really helpful to have that as part of kind of the early learnings, and again, the rigor of taking the exam and the signaling that had.
Right. The signaling is exceptionally important too. It is most of it, right? Especially when you have it for a few years.
Oh,
It's
sure.
but did you also enjoy the sort of the act of learning, the feeling of
Absolutely.
being a student again, all that kind of stuff?
Totally, totally. I mean, it's certainly a lot of work, a lot of weekends spent reading,
Yeah.
reading and practice exams. But no, I think it suited me as far as wanting to just learn more, have some more of that academic background. Even though I studied finance in college, I found that the three exams just got deeper and deeper into some of the concepts that I needed on the job. Again, working around and for portfolio managers, traders, so knowing some of the lingo and kind of what are the basic building blocks that then get applied to the actual role of investment management.
Yeah, and that's the great thing. It makes some of the rather daunting language alone
Oh, sure.
a little bit easier to
Yeah.
parse, right, for a younger person. So what happened next? So you went through 1, 2, and 3, and
That's
got your
right.
charter, and what
Knocked it
happened
out.
next?
So it kind of dovetailed nicely my journey with having spent the first 4 years of my career at Bernstein. That's the time when I took all of the exams. And when I then made a transition to leave, ending up at BlackRock, that's when I had the charter. I had my 4 years of work experience.
And the
And
charter.
that's when I
Okay.
was more formally introduced to the CFA Society. So it was an exciting thing to start a new job, be able to tack on CFA to the end of my name with my new business cards. And I think by the end of that first year, I was already starting to attend events and hear about all the great things going on at the society.
Right. So I'm curious about because I think the benefits that one derives from membership change during their time in their career. So, what types of things just at the beginning did you really think were valuable in the membership for you?
I think it was just meeting other people who were all in the same career, but, or I should say, all in the same industry, but all had pretty different career
Yeah.
experiences. Again, I have only worked at two investment management shops, so I certainly there's a lot of diversity within that field, but there's a lot beyond that as well. And you get a really nice exposure with the CFA Society and meeting any and every type of finance professional in New York. So I think combined with being part of the young leaders interest group, meeting that diversity of professionals, but who were my peers, was really instrumental to feeling like I was at a new stage. Again, I had the charter now. I was a little smarter on what it meant to be in the industry and be a working professional. So it all, again, dovetailed really nicely.
Okay. So you became a volunteer pretty shortly after you joined.
I did. Yes.
That's not normal, right? Most people do it for a couple of years and then kind of say, "Oh, gee, this is fun. I'll try." Uh,
Yep.
what made you get through that transition quickly? Do you think? Is just you being you?
That's probably part of it.
Yeah.
It's never an intention, but I can't help but raise my hand if something's interesting. Wanting to get more involved where I see value and where I'm just personally interested. So it's definitely a very personal choice to do that, but totally circumstantial too. It was being around the right people at the right time.
Right.
The Young Leaders Interest Group had maybe been around for a year or two prior. So there was a lot that was on the table to create and deliver value to that younger cohort of CFA members or even candidates to the exams. So there was a lot to help with and to plan. Um, that really just helped me get involved early on and then, of course, stay involved where I am now.
Okay. And so after a few years of that, before you became a member of the board,
Mhm.
how did the value that you got from membership change?
So it was definitely an interesting time where in the middle of that, let's call it 7 year period, was COVID.
Yep.
Uh, a little thing called COVID,
Yeah.
where we had to take a very hard pivot to meeting our members online. Whereas before we had very regular programming, both content and mentorship programs and events and networking, where we then had to think, okay, how do we keep people together through this crazy time and fit into their lives where we're all navigating working from home and being isolated a lot from our peers and our colleagues and our friends. So that was a really interesting experience. And I have to say, I think the group and the society did as well as they could have, just keeping up engagement and trying to meet the members where they were. I think we're still working through that, but there's a lot to be excited about having been through that period, getting in new leadership, both at the board level and with the staff. And yeah, my personal experience was just, it's another challenge, whether it's COVID, whether it's market events. How do you pivot? How do you change? How do you adapt? That's what this industry is anyway. It's dynamic, it's always evolving. So you got to keep up.
Right. So can you describe then what your motivation was to join the board?
Sure. So by that time, I'd spent several years in this young leaders interest group. I had served a few years as the co chair of the group. So it just naturally felt like the right time to roll off. We've always been very keen on building a pipeline, bringing new people in. I think that's something we're starting to do more with the interest groups broadly,
Yep.
just so we have more people who feel and want to be engaged. And after that, having built a lot of relationships at the society, having enjoyed my time and having that insight on here's what works, here's what doesn't, it felt like a good next step to put in my application, I should say, for the board. And I was very fortunate to have been voted in, and it's been a great couple years.
Yeah. So, what's next for your goals with the board? How can you deliver that to the members who are listening to this? Because some of them might not be always that clear because they attend events, but the activities of the board might not be that clear to them. So,
Totally. Well, I would say, for one, that's something we would like to change. So I'm glad we're talking about it on this podcast. We went through an exercise last year that I think will help bring to light some of what the board does. We put together a new 3-year strategic plan. So this is something the board's is always working on. Again, we develop plans every 3 years, but there are things that are worked on in between. And it's about how are we taking strategic action to serve our membership, deliver the most value, and evolve with the times within the community here in New York City. So we spent many an hour working on a new vision and mission statement, defining our values, all of which can be found on the CFA New York website. So these are the North Stars for what we're doing going into the next year, going into the next several years, frankly, 3 years and beyond. So I'm really excited by kind of these bigger goals that we've set for ourselves, that we want to be there for the community of finance and investment professional and deliver that excellence of education, exchange of ideas, a place to build relationships and network, and otherwise help your career grow in any way that you find valuable. The CFA charter is not just about taking the exams. It's kind of the journey throughout your career and what else you can get out of it.
I could not think of a better place to leave leave this podcast. That a wonderful statement. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Rob.
And thanks to all of those of you who listened in here. I know this was a little bit different from our regular production. I hope it was motivational to people who are trying to find their way, maybe in the early stages of the CFA exam. And for those of you who've been around for a little while, I know you feel some similarities and some kinship with Caroline. So I hope this was helpful for you too. Until next time, I'm Rob Rowan, and this has been Compound Insights.